Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor and a pleasure to be with you. Congratulations to the Korea Daily for 45 years, and it really is an honor to be part of the inaugural Economic Forum. As Selena said, my name is Tyler Laferriere. I am with the LAEDC, which is the LA County Economic Development Corporation, and so I'll take about 15 minutes for my remarks and then hand over the microphone to my colleague Mike Smith. And so the way that we've structured this presentation is I'm going to present some of the economic data and information that we've gathered over the year in terms of an outlook, especially on Los Angeles County, talk a little bit about our research in foreign direct investment and trade, and then I'll hand it over to Mike for some comments about the policy environment with respect to international trade and engagement in Los Angeles County in the state of California. So a bit about the LAEDC. We are a 501c3 nonprofit founded in the 1980s by the County of Los Angeles and currently sustained by our partnership with the county, with the 88 cities, with private businesses like those in the room, and also with other nonprofits. And our goal and our mission is to act as a convening organization for business, for government, and for education to really create the programs and policies that continue to drive the economic prosperity and vitality of our region well into the 21st century. And so part of that mission includes a research aspect for which I work called the Institute for Applied Economics. And so we do all of the industry, workforce, trade, foreign direct investment, and policy research that really drives our programs and initiatives at the LAEDC. And some of this research I will be sharing with you, of course, today. So taking a look at where we are of course in Southern California, which at its most generous interpretation is a 10-county region extending from San Luis Obispo and Kern counties in the north, all the way to San Diego and Imperial counties in the south. Taken together, Southern California accounts for about 2/3 of the state's population and roughly as much, about 60% of the GDP of the state of California. LA in particular, and I got caught off a little bit, but LA in particular is home to about 1 in 4 Californians and accounts for about 27% of the state's GDP. So really an economic engine powering the vitality of our state. So side by side, just some of the metrics. They look about the same with a little bit different population, but roughly commensurate. Median household incomes are between $68,000 and $69,000 per year. The median income or housing price to income ratio, roughly about the same, 7.3 and 7.7 respectively. Something a little bit more sustainable would be around about a ratio of 4. And so, of course, as we will be continuing to talk about, that housing affordability is one of those major economic hurdles to growth in California. Poverty rates are about the same, as you can see, about 60% of the gross domestic product for the state of California comes from just Southern California. Looking at LA County in particular, you can see again, roughly commensurate median household income, a slightly less affordable county with a median home price to income ratio of about 9. As I said, about 1 in 4 Californians lives just within LA County, so that accounts for about 10.2 million people, and a gross domestic product of over $800 billion last year. Looking at real GDP growth, we've done quite well since the end of the recession and the great financial crisis, posting income growth either at or slightly above national growth, depending on the year. And as of the LAEDC's forecast published in February of 2019, we're expecting fairly robust growth in the next 2 years. However, that could be downgraded a little bit given some of the national occurrences that have gone on, and also because of housing and unaffordability. Looking at the types of jobs that we've been creating since the end of the financial crisis, we're seeing that continuing downward trend in manufacturing jobs due to both automation and also due to some outsourcing, but continued growth, especially in things like construction, especially as the economy has grown and improved. And then other so-called population-serving industries, such as financial activities, professional and business services, education, and healthcare. And as you can see, housing permits and home values are both on the rise. Hopefully in the near term, we might see those improve and increase, especially since the Southern California Association of Governments, or SCAG, recently published a report recommending 1.3 additional homes in just Southern California in order to meet some of the governor's goals. So hopefully that will foment and spur some additional policy improvements going forward. Looking at the economic environment even further, you can see that we've really recovered from the great financial crisis, bringing unemployment to a very low level. As of September of this year, unemployment in the county is only 4.5%, which is very good. We might see it uptick a little bit at the end of the year, but that's nothing to worry about, really. The graph on your right-hand side shows the change in the job composition on a year-over-year basis between 2018 and 2019. And as you can see, really a market increase, as I said, in a lot of those population-serving industries, such as healthcare, such as construction, such as professional services, but also in logistics and transportation, which is encouraging. The only industries that really took a hit were retail trade, and that's part of a longer-term trend due to automation. So retail trade jobs are just really going away because a lot of those processes are being automated, especially as people shop more and more online. And then government jobs also took a hit in this last year, largely probably due to the government shutdown earlier in the year, things like the teachers' strikes, and then continuing budget cuts at the federal level to a lot of those departments that are really large in LA County, such as Health and Human Services and also Veterans Affairs. Looking further at the economic environment, in 2018, we finally closed the gap between real household income and nominal household income. So that means real income in the county is finally rising again. You can also see, and this is particularly important going forward, how the change in education in the county is really improving, with more of our younger workers earning either high school diplomas or higher in terms of credentials, which really means that our workforce is prepared for the future. We have a highly educated and motivated workforce that will really help us going forward in terms of catering to those higher end and higher knowledge industries. And of course, never to neglect that great issue of housing. As you can see, we've mostly recovered in terms of housing permits in the county, but are not quite above pre-recession levels. But what's really important to look at is the change in those housing permit compositions. You can see a lot more in multifamily rather than single family. So the future of Los Angeles really is in apartments and condos and in multifamily units rather than the single family house with a yard. And so hopefully we'll see those housing permits continue to increase as time goes forward. Again, to reinforce the theme of housing affordability as a hurdle to economic growth, vitality, and development in the region, it's almost better to think about this chart in reverse. What this chart says is that housing is really only affordable to about a third of both Angelenos and Californians. But then think about it on the other side, that 2/3 to 70% of Californians and Angelenos cannot afford a median-priced home. And so again, truly a hurdle to economic development and to continued wealth creation at the household level if people cannot, in fact, get into their own homes. Now, switching over from a general outlook to foreign direct investment, I will be presenting some of the findings from our latest FDI report. And so in 2019, we reported that our highest or our largest partners in terms of FDI were not actually China, as many people expect, but actually Japan, the UK, France, Canada, and Germany rounding out the top 5. And as you can see, South Korea is our 11th largest foreign direct investment partner in terms of job creation and in terms of job sustainment. As you can see that we've taken a little bit of a hit over the past 3 years in terms of FDI jobs on a jobs basis, but an increase in terms of the number of FDI-supported firms. And largely this is due, we expect, from the more uncertain policy environment that's occurred, especially at the federal level. But as you can see, and what's really important to us to point out, is that all of these jobs support very high wage employment. In fact, most of them well above the median household income for the county and for the region. Looking at foreign direct investment by industry, you can see that a lot of these trends are following larger macroeconomic trends. Fewer jobs and fewer businesses in traditional areas like retail trade and manufacturing, but many more in information, which covers not only things like movies and sound recording, but also data warehousing, storage and processing, and then also in areas like leisure and hospitality. So lots of foreign investment into our domestic tourism and hotel industries. And as you can see here, over the last 3 years, a decline in the number of FDI jobs in LA and Orange counties, but more out in the Inland Empire, so that's San Bernardino and Riverside, and more in San Diego and Ventura. So really a widening out of how FDI is impacting the region. And again, looking at its impact for both Southern California, in this case, Southern California defined as 6 counties, and then also just LA County. Again, reinforcing the theme, FDI jobs support billions in terms of wages, thousands of jobs, and also thousands of firms. Looking specifically at South Korea as an important FDI partner, you can see that most of these jobs are in LA and Orange County, but also a significant proportion in San Diego. Even more interestingly enough, South Korean FDI is largely concentrated in manufacturing and wholesale trade. So a lot of South Korean manufacturers setting up shop and maintaining and sustaining jobs in that vital industry and creating lots of high-wage jobs. Now looking down at the city of Los Angeles, this was the first year we published an FDI report concentrated just on the city of LA. You can see that in terms of jobs numbers, a lot of our key partners have invested more in terms of the jobs that they have created and sustained in the last year. Canada and Mexico, Belgium, Spain, and the UK, but also China, South Korea, and Hong Kong in Asia. On a firm level, there's been a little bit of change, but that doesn't worry us near as much as the job creation aspect. Looking at the sectoral composition of this investment, it's markedly different than the region, much more concentration in financial services, in information, and in professional services. Looking at South Korea's FDI in the city of LA in particular, South Korea is number 8 in the city and sustains over 2,000 jobs, paying more than $160 million in wages last year. Now, in a lot of our more recent foreign direct investment in trade work, we've actually focused on this notion of trade concentration. So not just trade volume, but how concentrated is that trade in terms of the amount of goods coming from that trade partner by the number of citizens living in that trade partner's country, and then also by the number of goods we send to that trade partner over the number of citizens living in that trade partner's country. So really a measure of how productive that trade partner is by comparison to the goods they send, and how consumptive they are by the number of goods we send to them. So South Korea is actually number 3 on that metric, only behind Canada and Mexico. And then I checked this morning. South Korea's exports and imports, if you were interested, to California are actually up year over year. So even though we might be seeing trade tensions with China, for South Korea, that's not the case. We're actually seeing an increase of trade relationship. And so we're hoping that continues well into the future. So my time is now up. Thank you for paying attention to the economic and FDI aspects. Let's now hear some policy remarks from my colleague, Mike Smith.